Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's presentation. My name is Sam Dolce, and I'm an attorney with Milestone Consulting. Today, I'm going to be explaining some of the basics around qualified settlement funds and how they can benefit survivors. We've actually created a new tool in a national QSF that's really going to help change how survivors approach settlement. And I think it's really going to change the industry standard of how we care for our clients. So you see the title I put on this is a little bit shorter than was on the original webinar. That's because I think I came up with the longest webinar title ever. I am a trust attorney. I'm not necessarily someone who does presentations often. So please cut me a little bit of slack. All right, thank you. So first, just briefly a little bit about me. My father was a litigator for 35 years. My mother is a PhD in disability studies at the State University of New York at Buffalo. And I was pretty much destined to help injured people because of that. I started my career as a PI attorney. I then started doing pro bono work. And I realized a lot of clients were receiving 6- and 7-figure settlements, but they weren't necessarily seeing better outcomes. And so that's when I decided to focus my career on making sure that those clients saw the best possible outcomes from their settlements. So I found this company, Milestone, where I've proudly worked for more than a year now, and is really made up of 3 separate companies. So we have the Bears Foundation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. They provide litigation funding to plaintiffs. So if you're sick of the private companies charging 20, 30, 40% for non-recourse advances, the Bears Foundation does simple interest in the single digits. Our goal is to help people get to the settlement table without going deeply into debt. There's Milestone, which provides free comprehensive settlement planning to any plaintiff. If anyone needs help, we're there to give them that guidance. And so we have a team of CPAs, fiduciaries, attorneys that focus on all sorts of issues that come up at the time of settlement. And lastly, we operate Monolith, which is an RIA. They're a boutique wealth management firm, and it gives us a lot of options when we are planning for your clients. When I say comprehensive settlement planning, it can go in a lot of different directions. Today, we're going to focus solely on the National Qualified Settlement Fund that we've set up for survivors. If you have questions about these other things, we probably have another webinar that addresses them. We also have a webinar that goes in depth on qualified settlement funds generally. That's led by our CEO and founder, John Baer. I'm happy to send the link. Just shoot me a quick email. So, to me, the new industry standard for survivors receiving settlements is more than handing them a check. We need to move beyond handing a 6- or 7-figure check over to somebody who statistically has a higher rate of having PTSD, anxiety, depression, and substance abuse. We need to make sure we're protecting our clients and ensuring that they have the full agency of making smart decisions in settlement. To do that, we can use a tool called the Qualified Settlement Fund. I'm sure many of you have used them before. Some of you may have not. I'm going to cover some of the very bare bone basics. That'll be timing, receipt, planning options, and lastly, time and space, which to me is probably the most important when talking about survivors. The Qualified Settlement Fund was created because of an issue with timing. Defendants desired to get a simple tax write-off quickly when dealing with complicated litigation. They wanted to be able to write a single check and be done with the case. Therefore, they wanted the creation of a special type of trust that they could write this check to, the 468B trust, also known as a qualified settlement fund. Now, the plaintiff attorney and the plaintiff's goals are one and the same throughout the litigation process until you get to the settlement table. Then, typically, the plaintiff attorney wants their revenue as quickly as possible. Even if they're not going to receive it directly and they're going to defer their funds, they want to at least know that revenue is available. The plaintiff, on the other hand, typically doesn't want to see cash in a week's time. They need time to plan, prepare, and make sure they're making the right tax decisions as well as other decisions about their investments. And all of this comes down to a QSF pauses the idea of receipt. Now, funds within the QSF are not received as income or revenue. That's very important because the IRS only taxes income and revenue. Without income or revenue, there's no tax burden. So the funds are temporarily suspended. For client funds that are tax exempt, this can continue through a structure. Through attorney funds, they can be tax deferred. Now, by placing your funds without receipt, you have all your planning options remaining open. So you can do a traditional structure, an equity-backed structure, trust, benefit preservation. All your options are on the table. And you can take as much time as you want. Now, how many clients do you know who are prepared to receive $1 million cash? The mediation's on Wednesday, checks there the next week. They have 1 week's time to figure out what to do with more money than they'll see over the course of the rest of their lives. Typically, you probably recommend they speak with a CPA, a fiduciary, and an attorney. When working with survivors, you'll see that this population isn't always the most adaptable at seeking out resources. Now, I don't want to take away anything from survivors. There's many in my own life who I love dearly. However, I know when they were receiving their settlements, they could have benefited from something like this. It's part of the reason why we created it. When we were working on the Larry Nassar cases, we saw many of the people who were receiving settlements needed more time and space. One of them actually just came to terms of what they were going to do last month. The case settled nearly a year ago. And so with that being said, people want to talk to their therapists, their social workers, their family, their friends. We need to be able to create that time and space. And a QSF does that. Typically, I don't think there's enough time during settlement proceedings to do that. And that's why I say the new industry standard for survivors seeking settlements is more than handing them a check. It's using a QSF. But QSFs can be expensive. There can be fees associated with it, time delays in getting it set up, et cetera, et cetera. That's why we teamed up with a number of leading sex assault and sex abuse litigators to figure out a solution. We came up with the settlement account. I want to talk about why to join, how to join, some examples of people that have used QSFs to benefit themselves, and the accessibility and cost of doing so. The main reason why to join, in my mind, is there's unlimited time and space for the client to plan. If you have a client who knows exactly what they're going to do with their funds, there's really no reason to have to put them in a QSF. However, many don't even know of the unforeseen consequences of receiving those funds. Even if it's just going to be 10 or 20 grand, it may impact the rest of their benefits, for example. When in a QSF, all planning options remain open. So if there's a delay in placing a structure, et cetera, the funds can be played to the QSF, and then that kind of agreement can be reached down the road. All their planning options are open. There's no receipt. We're going to make available our team of CPAs, fiduciaries, and attorneys who are ready to assist with no fee. We're also going to engage in a very serious trauma-informed care training program and a very high level of confidentiality with all of these clients. As an added note, as an attorney, if you're receiving $1 million fee, you may not want to receive $1 million in income. Using a QSF, you have yet to receive that income. You can choose to defer it down the road. We have a fee master program you're happy to use, or you can use any other company as well. So how to join? Well, the national QSF, all you need is a joinder agreement. And this is something we can send over. It's a simple joinder agreement with Milestone. So you basically settle the case and you change the payee line from being your escrow account or your IOLTA account to the settlement account. The settlement account becomes the payee within the settlement agreement. Therefore, the check is made out directly to the settlement account, and you can have the client name or your firm name in the check memo line. By doing so, you join the QSF, sign the joinder agreement, payee line. And what does that do for your client? Well, I'm going to go through two quick examples. There's Jane Doe and John Doe. I'm obviously not going to give actual names of our clients as we do take confidentiality seriously. Jane Doe is a relatively unique situation that I don't see that often. She was a young professional, 26. She received a six-figure income, worked for a large company, and was pretty much already set up in life in a lot of ways. But she had dreams to get married at a dream wedding, buy her dream house, and she wanted to retire early at the age of 50. She received a little bit less than $1 million. So for her, it made a lot of sense to place her funds in what we call an equity-backed structure, which is a tax-free investment account that's attached to a payment schedule that'll pay out over time. She was going to receive $70K in 2 years to pay for her dream wedding, $150K in 5 years to pay for that dream house as the down payment. And then she was going to receive $100,000 a year from the age 50 until the age 65, or as long as the account will last. Now, keep in mind, her funds are invested tax-free during this time, so they're able to snowball in that investment account. John Doe is very different than Jane. John was housing unstable, he was 54 years old, and his dream really through his lawsuit was to tell a story. He wanted to communicate his truth. Now, he never really put much thought into his future, or if he had, he expressed to me that he hadn't. And he wasn't really sure what he wanted to do with his settlement. But he told me that he could not be trusted with a large amount of money at once. He had a history of substance abuse and schizophrenia. And so speaking with him, as he spoke with his therapist, his friends, his advisors, we were able to figure out what the best path was. He received some funds up front, but then he was locked into a guaranteed payment schedule. These are funds that he will receive, and they would also grow tax-free. However, instead of them being put in an investment account, they were placed within an annuity, so he knew he could rely on the funds. And he's receiving those funds now and will continue to receive them for years, every month, reliable. Both of those people's stories would have been much different if they would have just received a check for $1 million. Now, our team is trained in trauma-informed care and continues to be. We're partnering with Dr. Laura McGuire, who does a CLE for attorneys. Actually gives you CLE credit in trauma-informed care. We're having her train our whole team. She's putting together a wonderful program for us. I've included in the handouts one of her sheets that if you want to contact their program, it's wonderful. We have experience with different experiences. So we're a national company. I'll be on the phone with somebody from Mobile, and then I'll be flying to Philly, and then I'll be talking with someone from San Francisco. We are all over the place. If there's a small town in this country, I've probably been there. That's my joke. Our staff is regularly retrained in trauma-informed care because we know the literature is changing constantly. We also provide the same level of confidentiality as any major law firm. So how much does all this cost, right? Unlimited time to talk to CPAs, fiduciaries, sounds like it'd be really expensive. We're trying to make it as inexpensive as possible. So we're charging this as a $750 max fee. And I say a max fee because if there's multiple plaintiffs, we're not going to charge each of them $750. That'd be ridiculous. So depending on how many people we have able to join the account is how much we'll have it all cost. We're constantly trying to get that number lower. I understand that $750 may sound very expensive. However, I was talking to an attorney a few weeks ago who told me that he just paid 5 figures for a QSF. And so to give all the same availabilities and options along with the trauma-informed care trained level of expertise, it's really kind of the best deal we could do at this point. We're going to continue to keep working on it. Anyway, this is my contact information, and I'm really happy to answer any questions people may have. I know I may have gone a little quickly through all of that, so I would love to talk to you all about this, either now through questions that you can do right on the right side of your screen through the control panel, or at a later date. My contact information is right there. Great. So it doesn't seem that there's any immediate questions. I do want to point out a few other things that I included in the control panel. You'll see 3 handouts. There's the handout for the trauma-informed courses. Oh, I just received a question. Who typically starts the conversation with me? It's a great question. Thank you for asking. So I have people reach out to me of all sorts. So sometimes there'll be survivors who've gone through a very serious experience, they'll call directly into our office, or even call me on my cell phone. Sometimes they're family members or friends who've heard about our expertise and are very happy to refer their friends and family, but their friends and family are a little bit nervous about calling directly, which we completely understand. The main way we reach clients is through their attorneys. I would say 90% of the people who come to us are through their attorneys, and that's because the attorneys understand the need for this. If you worked in personal injury for any amount of time, you've seen the person who receives a 6 or 7 figure settlement, and 3 years later, they're back at your office because something happened and they ran out of their money. And so our job is to stop that from happening. Our job is to help people be as responsible as possible and give them the tools to do that. This national QSF is one of those tools. I think it's groundbreaking. I've never heard of anything else like it. I'm so excited to be introducing this. I hope it becomes the new standard. That being said, right now the standard is not there. Right now the standard is either placing people in these traditional structures that are growing at 1 or 2%, or not placing them into anything at all, just giving them a check, which frankly is, in my opinion, is not good enough. You'll also see in the handout materials that we have a link to our fee master program. I did mention attorney fee deferrals, so if you have any questions about that, you can see our program there. There's also a flyer for the settlement account. There's other people who might be interested. Please feel free to share that with them. I'm doing 2 more webinars just like this, taking more questions live, trying to get the word out as much as possible. As I said before, I'm a damn good trust attorney. I'm not always the best public speaker. So please, please let people know about this. I really think it can help a lot of people. Well, if there's no more questions, I'm going to end the webinar there. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I really appreciate your time. I know all of you are very busy. I know how hard it is to be a trial attorney. I thank you for what you do. I know how much you care about your clients. I also care about your clients, so I'm happy to extend a phone call at any point. My cell phone number is right there. It's always on, and I don't sleep because I have a 6-month-old. Have a great day.